The crunch of gravel under my tires felt strange today, like something was off. My silver SUV rounded the final curve of Pine Hollow Road, and there it was, my family's farm. Or at least, it used to be. Where golden wheat fields once stretched out, a hulking concrete beast now loomed, its countless windows glinting like watchful eyes. I pulled over, my hands clenched around the steering wheel so hard my knuckles whitened. In just a month, the farm I'd known my whole life had vanished, replaced by a 3-story hotel with neat landscaping, trimmed lawns, and a sprawling parking lot. Bright yellow construction barriers circled the site, and workers in hard hats scurried around like ants. My mind spun. How could this happen? I'd been away for a critical consulting gig in Singapore, something my family desperately needed. My wife, Laura, and I had gone over every detail before I left. We thought we'd locked everything down. The farm had been ours for 4 generations, every acre sacred, tended with care. A worker spotted me and walked over, clipboard under his arm. "Can I help you?" he asked. I stepped out, legs shaky. "This is my family's land," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'm James Carter." He shifted awkwardly. "Oh, you're the owner?" He didn't seem to know what to say next. Before I could press him, my phone buzzed. A text from Laura. "James, emergency, call me now." But my eyes stayed glued to the hotel, rising from my farmland like some alien invader. I moved closer, boots crunching on what used to be rich soil. Each step felt wrong. This wasn't just a building. It was a bold claim, a declaration that someone thought they could take what wasn't theirs. A sign near the entrance caught my eye. Evergreen Community Development, approved by HOA Board, Project Director, Linda Hayes. My stomach tightened. Linda, the HOA president, had always seen our farm as a nuisance. She'd nitpicked our boundaries, sent letters about grass height and fence rules. She'd coveted our land for years, but this was beyond anything I'd imagined. A stack of papers sat on a nearby table. I couldn't resist. Permits, zoning docs, approval stamps. Each page pieced together a story I needed to unravel. One caught my attention, a vague note about community improvement zones. It wasn't outright illegal, but it felt sly, calculated. The worker eyed me nervously. "Sir, you can't be here," he said, but his tone lacked bite. I flashed a tight smile. "I'll leave soon." Driving back to town, questions swirled. How long had this been in the works? What tricks had Linda pulled? And most importantly, how could I prove it was wrong? Laura's text still sat unanswered. I needed facts, evidence. This wasn't just about land. It was about justice, about saving a legacy. A billboard flashed by. Evergreen, growing together. The irony stung. Growing together, apparently, meant taking without asking. At a coffee shop, I scribbled notes, dates, observations, questions. Each line was a step toward cracking this puzzle. The farm was our history, our future. The waitress refilled my cup. "Rough day?" she asked. I looked up, a determined grin forming. "Just getting started." Linda had no idea what was coming. Back home, the barn's dusty file cabinet held secrets I'd never fully explored. Sunlight slipped through the slats, illuminating specks of dust as I pulled out yellowed papers my grandfather had kept. My fingers brushed old property maps, each crease a testament to our tie to this land. I spread them across the workbench, sifting through decades of records. Most would have tossed these long ago, but I'd always felt they mattered. My grandfather, a cautious man, had taught me that knowledge was power. Now, that lesson might save us. A 1952 map showed our farm's exact boundaries, scribbled notes in the margins. He'd fought to protect this land before, and his words echoed. "It's your best weapon, James." As I dug deeper, a pattern emerged. The HOA hadn't sprung up overnight. They'd been eroding property rights for years. Old minutes, letters, and notices painted a picture of Linda's quiet ambition. A faded envelope held letters about a property dispute from decades past. The HOA had tried this before, claiming and used land for community benefit, but someone had stopped them. Those papers showed how. I snapped photos, hands steady but mind racing. Laura would help me connect the dots later. She had a gift for seeing what I missed. The barn felt alive now. These weren't just papers. They were weapons in a fight I didn't start but would finish. Gravel crunched outside. Through the window, I saw a white SUV with HOA stickers pull up. Linda Hayes stepped out, sunglasses gleaming, clipboard in hand. She surveyed my land like she already owned it, heels sinking into the soil where wheat once grew. I stayed hidden, watching. The hotel loomed behind her, a jarring blight on this quiet landscape. My phone buzzed again. Marcus, my lawyer, found something big. Call me. I waited till Linda left, dust trailing her wake, before stepping out. The land felt different now, a battlefield. My next move had to be sharp. Those papers were just the start. Somewhere in them was the key to stopping this. The community center buzzed as I walked in, briefcase heavy with documents. Each page was a weapon in this fight for our land. Fluorescent lights flickered over a packed room. HOA board members and residents, all watching. Linda sat at the head, her blazer pristine, hair perfect, radiating control. She'd always bent rules, her fake charm hiding her real intent. I'd seen her corner neighbors at meetings, voice sweet but sharp. I'd like to address the development on my family's land, I began, voice calm. The room hushed, tension crackling. I laid out the maps, old, notarized, showing boundaries predating the HOA. My fingers traced the lines, each one a piece of our history. Linda's eyebrow twitched, a tiny tell. She knew she was on thin ice. These proved the land wasn't transferable without my consent, I said, pulling out photos. Years of farm life. Time-stamped, showing care and use. Each image chipped away at their case. Linda cut in. Mr. Carter, this is hardly. I held firm. I'm not done. Board members squirmed. Next, an environmental report I'd commissioned privately. Drainage flaws, soil issues, violations of county rules. A woman in the back, Ellen Parker, a fair-minded local, leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Linda's face darkened. Can you explain the environmental concerns? Ellen asked. I broke it down simply, aiming to inform, not overwhelm. The room listened, truly listened. You can't just take land, I said softly. This is about rights, legacy, trust. A young board member, Tom, spoke up. We have questions about the documents. I smiled. Questions meant they were engaged. For an hour, I dismantled the HOA's claims, each piece building my case. Doubt spread. Ellen scribbled notes. Tom studied the reports. Linda's confidence frayed. When it ended, the air buzzed with possibility. I hadn't won yet, but I'd sown seeds. Outside, Ellen whispered, those reports are serious. The board didn't know. I nodded. The real fight was just starting. Old Mr. Grayson knocked after breakfast, hands shaky as he handed me an envelope. You'll want this, he murmured. Inside, faded photos and notes revealed Linda's history of land grabs. Manipulative, calculated, masked as improvement. Laura's hand steadied me. What's your plan? She asked. These are a roadmap to her strategy, I said, spreading them out. Grayson sat, eyes distant. She's been at this for years. No one dared fight. A 1990s aerial photo showed evergreen with red lines, boundaries off from county records. She promised betterment, Grayson said. But for who? Laura copied the papers, each a potential weapon. A young woman passed our window, hesitating, familiar from HOA meetings. She hurried off. Some folks are talking, Grayson whispered. Not everyone's with Linda, but they're scared. I mapped her moves, rezoning, boundary tweaks, shady permits. My farm was just her latest prize. The phone rang, an unknown number. Laura answered, her face shifting. Someone wants to meet, she said. They know about Linda's past. Grayson grinned. Truth finds a way. We sleeved the documents, years of care now paying off. Linda thought she could take what she wanted, but she'd underestimated us. Marcus, my lawyer, pored over maps at his table. These lines are trickier than I thought, he muttered, tracing a survey. Linda had mocked our outdated farm, but today my calloused hands would strike back. Laura brought coffee, her touch reassuring. Marcus aligned maps from decades apart, revealing subtle shifts, sloppy work the HOA missed. They didn't dig deep, he grinned. Hours passed, digging through tax records, letters, inheritance papers. A ping historical society docs from the 1940s. Linda's kingdom would fall under its own arrogance. We can't tip our hand, Marcus warned. Laura set down a box from her grandmother's attic. Surveys, transfers, game changers. Light faded as we worked, each paper a weapon. The county called. More archive finds. They underestimated us, I said. Their biggest mistake. In the attic, Laura lifted an old box, hinges tarnished. Inside, deeds, photos, and letters formed a mosaic. A map bore my grandfather's notes, red lines tying our land to a broader network. He was preparing, I whispered. A 1973 letter mentioned a land trust, a legal shield for times like this. He knew, I said. Photos showed boundary shifts, subtle, suspicious. Marcus needs these, I told Laura. But Linda can't know. A text buzzed. Some secrets stay buried. The game had shifted. The Evergreen Gazette ran the story. Jack, the editor, warned, Linda won't go quietly. Calls flooded in. Linda's venom first. You think you can shame me? Calmly, I replied. I'm protecting what's ours. Coffee shops buzzed with tales of her bullying. TV crews arrived, Laura and Emma live streaming the HOA meeting. Linda called me a troublemaker, but my evidence, surveys, logs, records, held firm. The community shifted, her threats weakened. A reporter offered a statewide feature. We're ready, I told Laura. This was just the start. At Marcus's table, a tiny wetland mark changed everything. No permit can touch this, he said. Reports piled up, fines, restoration, charges loomed. An anonymous email brought aerial shots. Petitions grew. They thought no one saw, Marcus said. But we did. In court, tension hung thick. Marcus laid out the case. Maps, emails, environmental breaches. Linda cracked. An HOA insider turned. Judge Hartman weighed each piece. My hands shook as I walked the farm post-victory, soil a symbol of resilience. Linda's network unraveled, but she'd appeal. We were ready. The hawk overhead signaled our fight wasn't over, just beginning.